Hello internet and welcome to the channel. My name's Frankie and in this video we are starting a brand new franchise mode zoo in Planet Zoo Console Edition. Now for those of you that are brand new to the channel, I just want to let you know that we have just finished up Little Asia, which was my first franchise mode zoo on PlayStation. And it did come to a bit of an abrupt ending because I made the heartbreaking mistake of accidentally completely deleting my zoo. But not to worry, we're going to pick ourselves up and move on with a brand new zoo, and this is exactly what we're doing right here. As you can see, I'm just starting out by using some pathing to kind of sketch out where I want things to be. In the previous zoo, I didn't go into much detail in terms of the entrance. I kind of just left it as the bog standard one you get provided when you start your franchise mode zoo. And then I built from there. But in this instance, I'm actually going to build something a bit more exciting, I guess. So the point of this video is you're going to get to see our first habitat build, which is going to be for the amazing Aldabra Tortoise, and I'm also going to be building a bit of an entrance. Now this entrance is being based on a personal favourite zoo of mine, one that's pretty local to me, and it's the place that I proposed to my wife at, and that is Drusilla's Park, which is in East Sussex. It's kind of classed as a children's zoo because they like to focus on the cute and fluffy animals that are going to grab the attention of children to really educate younger people, because at the end of the day, if younger people aren't passionate about this kind of thing, if they're not passionate about conserving wildlife and the welfare of animals, then this is going to be a dying industry going forwards. You need to inspire these people from an early age to ensure that the industry will last in the future. So yeah, I'm basing the entrance to my zoo on that one. I'll throw a little image in so you can kind of see what I'm going to be aiming for, and I'm really keeping it quite basic to begin with. I'm putting in the things that I know that I want, which is I want the idea of having our little ticket booths, or the entrance, the little ticket gates, yeah that's the word, and then immediately after that an info kiosk, because whenever you go to a zoo and you buy your tickets, it's not just a gate, is it? There's always somebody behind a counter who takes your money, maybe offers you a leaflet or a map or something, and then sends you on your way. So I really like the idea of having a little info desk kiosk thing immediately after the gates, because that just feels a bit more realistic. I'm also putting 2 toilets back to back just in front of the entrance, because the Drusilla's entrance does have a bathroom there as well. So that's just what I'm doing there. I'm going to be I'm going to place a couple exhibits in the entrance as well, because they have a boa constrictor in the entrance. So I'm going to place, well, a boa constrictor, obviously, but then from there I'm just going to pick whatever animals I want for the exhibits. I'm going to have 2 at the very beginning. We're going to have the boa constrictor and an iguana, because I love iguanas, and then we'll have some more around the back a bit later on, just after the tortoise enclosure. Now this whole area is going to be indoors. When you are viewing the animals, you're going to be undercover. So in order to make the habitat, I'm going to raise the ground area there, because I want it to be kind of at eye level. I don't want it to be having to look down. I want the tortoises to be raised up, and then you'll be able to see them through a nice window. So I raise the ground in the area that I want the exhibit to fill, the enclosure to fill even. I do have to adjust it a little bit because I make it a bit too big. It's going to be way too big for tortoises. Well, obviously you can't really make it too big because animals, infinite freedom, that's great. But I mean, it just doesn't look right. They'll seem a little bit lost in all that space. So we're going to condense it a little bit. When it comes to placing the barrier for this habitat, I do start with a brick wall and experiment with the windows inside of it. But at the end of the day, I decide I want to put in a little bit more effort than that. So instead, at this front area where I know the visitors are going to be looking in, I decide to change it all to glass. And then using some concrete panels, I'm going to line the bottom of the glass panels and the top, creating a nice little viewing area for our guests. Now, the main building material I use for this entire building is concrete. And it looks ugly, but that is for a reason. On the 28th of May, we're going to be getting the Aquatics pack coming to console. And in that pack, we have the faux rocks. Now, those are some really decorative rocks. You get a much smaller, you get a variety that is much smaller in size than what we've got at the moment, which is great. You also get some cool archways and some more pointy things. Basically, we're getting a lot more different shapes of rocks, and the most important thing about them is we can change the colour. We're going to be able to change the colour of the rocks directly rather than just picking ones from different biomes and doing it that way. So the idea is I'm going to leave this as a plain concrete kind of exterior and interior, unfortunately. And then once that pack has been released, I'll be coming back later and using the faux rocks to kind of create a cave feeling for this entrance area. So yes, it's not going to look the nicest in the world in this video and for the rest of this month, unfortunately, but I will be coming back later to fix it up. So just bear that in mind when we're looking at just how ugly this grey concrete is. But the most important thing is we're getting the shape. So I'm using these concrete pieces to line the top and bottom of the glass panel, creating a nice viewing area for our guests. And then I'm also going to start marking out the rest of the building with these concrete panels as well. And as there is only a physical barrier at the front of this habitat in terms of the glass barrier we've put down, we're going to need to use the null barrier around the rest of the habitat to ensure that this area does actually register as somewhere the keepers can get to and something that can contain the animals. So once I've put a null barrier in place around the perimeter of the enclosure, I can start to use the larger concrete panels to outline that as well. And I need to kind of create a dip in the ground so that we can get a doorway in place that is level to the ground, because unfortunately we couldn't place a door when the with the ground being raised inside like I wanted it to be for the guests to be able to see kind of a good level for the animals. Once that door is in place, we can finish the outlining of the entire habitat, and this does take quite a lot of time. There's a lot of finesse, maybe not finesse, there's a lot of back and forth with me moving different bits of concrete and stuff to make sure that we've got the nicest and cleanest finish to this habitat that I can manage. I am still quite new to this, but you know, we're all learning, and we are learning pretty quickly, I think, given how this is going. In order to make sure that the guests are going to be sticking to the viewing gallery at the front, make sure they're only round the front portion of this habitat, I'm going to be using a staff path up the side of it to join to that door. I don't want any of the guests going up there. It's going to be a staff only area really. After I'm happy with the outline for this habitat, I'm going to place our staff buildings, because at the moment I don't have any. Now, they're really not going to be anything fancy. I'm going to use the really plain undecorated buildings. I'm going to pop them behind the bathroom kind of area, somewhere that will be out of sight and out of mind of our guests. They won't be able to see it, and therefore it will just be nice and hidden, and hopefully won't have a negative impact on our guests, especially once we've surrounded that area in concrete as well. And with those staff amenity buildings in place, we can actually purchase our animals, and we're going to be getting the Lesser Antillean iguana for one of our exhibits, the boa constrictor for the other, and with the Aldabra tortoise for this lovely habitat here. Now, the Aldabra tortoise, we're going to be buying 2 males just because there were no females available at the time, and I didn't want to just place one and it'd be all lonely. We will get a female when it becomes available, but the market was kind of bare at this point in time. As for the exhibit animals, they can go straight into their exhibits, and we're going to go into the settings of the exhibits and put the, population control. Yep, we're going to turn the population control on so that we don't have lots and lots of animals breeding like crazy and bringing the welfare of each other down. So this will enable the zookeepers to go and get the animals once they've been born and then put them in a trade centre to ensure there's no overcrowding issues or anything, meaning that the welfare inside these exhibits stays high. Now, obviously, we're going to need our vets to start researching things, because we accidentally deleted the entire franchise and not just the zoo to begin with. We're having to research all animals, so we're going to set our vets to work straight away with researching some of these animals and getting the animals researched so that we can improve their welfare to the best of our ability. Next, I'm going to start making a couple changes to pathing, as I want there to be this open area in the middle that guests can walk about freely. It's not going to be that free, I guess, because there was a little hole in the middle, but we're going to cover this up and it will create the illusion that people are walking quite freely amongst that area. Now, the idea is to have this large area in front of the tortoise habitat so that the other wall can be lined with education boards and the little education kind of games that the children can play on, the paw print and the mouth and stuff like that, the height chart for the giraffe and whatnot. As you can see, I'm just starting to sketch in the rest of this building rather than just our habitat, using the concrete wall pieces. As I said, nothing fancy. We are going to come back and make this look a lot nicer once the aquatic pack has landed on the 28th of May. And whilst this whole area is being powered by the guest gates, there is no clean water facility, so I'm going to place one of those with the staff buildings, and we're going to start to create a pond in this tortoise habitat. Now, my idea is to have this be a concrete well kind of thing, the kind of thing that you do see in zoos and the kind of thing that you see in the tortoise habitat in the entrance to Drusilla's. Now, the tortoise habitat at Drusilla's has red-footed tortoise and some two-toed sloths. Obviously, neither of those animals are in the game, so we are just going to have to try and experiment a little bit. What I'm doing is sinking some concrete panels right into the bottom of the dug out area that I've created for our pond, and then I'm going to take some smaller wall pieces and angle those and very, very slightly go round the edge of this kind of pond area that I've created. It took quite a while for me to get the hang of how to do this properly. I needed to set it to an angle and then kind of copy and paste it around. It was a little bit finicky, and it did take quite a while to figure out how to do it properly. But in the end, I think it looks quite, I wouldn't say nice, but it's the look I was going for. It looks like one of those concrete pools that you see in zoos all the time. So I am quite happy with how it turned out. And then we can start to move on to the rest of the habitat. The first thing that I do once the concrete edge is in is start to alter the terrain a little bit to make the transition a bit smoother from the edge of the terrain that's already there to the edge of the pool. It's a little bit difficult to make sure it doesn't have a sharp edge, but we don't need it to be perfect. We're going to obscure it a little bit anyway, which is exactly what I do next. I go into our rocks tab, and specifically the rocks that would fit in the tortoise's environment, and I'm going to pick the quite long and thin ones. I'm going to use those to line the very top of this pool to stop it looking so jagged and make it look just a little bit more natural. As always, I am altering the terrain distribution by tapping on our animals and going over to their terrain tab. Then I can use the exact same method to start to pick out whatever plants that they will need in their habitat. The next thing that I build for their habitat is their covered area, their hard shelter. Obviously, this area is going to have a roof on it because this entire area is going to be enclosed, but I want them to have a dedicated sleeping area that I can later add some basking lamps to when more mechanic research has been done and we've unlocked a load of our themes and stuff, because at the moment we really don't have that wide a range of building materials, so we need our mechanics to get to work. I'm starting to line this edge with a bunch of rocks, and on top of those rocks we're going to use various wooden pieces to create their shelter. I want the roof to be at a bit of an angle. I think that looks a little bit nicer, and we're just going to use some simple logs to kind of prop it up and make it look like an actual bed sort of area. And what bed would be complete without a few kind of piles of hay on the bottom for these animals to rest on. We're also going to pop a few more massive stones and rocks and stuff around the edge of the habitat just to make it look a bit more immersive, and then we can move on to adding plants and stuff. However, one thing that I did need to bear in mind with placing plants is just how tall or high they were going to be. Because I am adding a roof to this whole structure, there's every chance that adding a tree in here wouldn't work. It's going to poke out the top. So instead I alter the barriers for this habitat to make sure that it's a nice sharp edge rather than the train dropping off like it currently does, because I think that looks a little bit poop. So I rejig the edges a little bit, and then we're going to place a roof across this whole building, which is going to make it look really ugly. But again, this is something I'm going to alter in the future. I want to kind of have the top of this area be a living space. We're going to put loads of mulch patches down and do a bit of a foliage coverage across the whole roof. I think that will look quite nice. But that's something for the future. We're not going to do that in this video specifically. So yeah, we're going to pop the roof on the whole building, and then we can start to add the plants, because we know how high the ceiling is and we know how much room we have for our plants to grow. When it comes to choosing what plants will go where in this habitat, I stick to my normal kind of rules, which is mainly to have larger, bigger, bushier plants focused near the edges and back of the habitat. And this is so that the foreground and the areas closest to the visitors is going to be more open, allowing for a better view of our animals when they come forwards towards the guests. And it also adds a sense of immersion. By having the background be a lot bushier, a lot more alive, it kind of creates this illusion that it stretches back further and continues into the wilderness, which is excellent for this kind of thing. I think it really helps to just bring the habitat to life a little bit. As this area is entirely closed, I'd got the mechanic researching the, I think it's the classic theme, which allows us to have glass panels. So I'm going to be adding a bunch of skylights to the roof to ensure there's a bit of lateral, to ensure there's a bit of a natural light in this area so that it's not all doom and gloom. And despite thinking that I was done with this habitat, when I was looking at the viewing area, I did get a little bit annoyed at how the glass just kind of ends at the concrete, and there's no real way that it would be sat in the concrete. So to remedy this, I take some wooden planks and adjust them ever so slightly to line the bottom of the glass, make it look like it's sat in this wood, and that is how it is joined to the concrete. Just little details like this can make the world of difference to a build. It can make it look a lot more realistic. It does take quite a bit of time to do this kind of thing, but you know, it's up to you how much effort you want to put in and how much of a difference you want to make with little things like this. Now, out the front, we're going to start working on the entrance a little bit more, and the two bathrooms that we have, we're going to have paths that come down either side of them to meet the main path. This will allow a wall to go in between them and have it be more separated between male and female bathrooms. Obviously, we can't actually separate them in game. We can't have all the women going in one and all the men going in the other, but you know, it's to create this kind of illusion that that's what's going on. We're going to be using the grid system here because it makes it so much easier when it comes to building a structure like this. All we need to do is surround this area with some building walls. I begin with concrete to match the rest of it, but then I remembered I'm not going to be making the outside of this area look like a cave, so why am I wasting my time? And I may as well just build it from the material I want it to be built in. So I then delete what I've just built and I recreate it with some of the modern theme wood pieces, which our mechanics have researched for us by now. We're going for the nice stacked kind of recycled wood looking kind of thing, and we're going to basically just rebuild what we've made from concrete using that. And then we can start to partition off the entrance gates and the shop and just make this into a bit more of a functional building rather than everything being open. Now, something that I really didn't use much in our little Asia zoo was signs and decorations, but for this entrance I'm going to go mad with it. So the first thing I'm going to be using is a bathroom sign for this bathroom. There are a few options, but I end up going for the non-background sign, which is just the two silhouettes of a man and a woman, really big, and it kind of indicates which side, which doorway the man or woman should go into, which I think is very useful for the kind of thing we're going for. After that, I'm going to move on to the rest of the building, where I'm going to create a couple of gables and plaster them with decorations. And it is at this point that we are actively trying to recreate what we see at Drusilla's Park, the influence for this habitat build. Now, in terms of the building materials, I'm not matching it. This just isn't really that close. The wood is not what they use. They go for a painted kind of concrete, which is completely fine, but I just wanted to basically take the structure and mirror that a little bit, and kind of the energy as well, I guess, because it's very colourful. It's got loads of animals, like pictures of animals, and their slogan, "No Ordinary Zoo." I'm going to use that as well on one of the gables, one of the smaller ones. Yeah, I'm just going to let you watch this bit. I will now shut up for a bit. I've been talking for a while now, haven't I? So yeah, I'll shut up and just let you watch this in time lapse for a little bit, and then I'll be back to talk a little bit more. But just quickly before I go, I forgot to mention what this zoo is actually called. Now, this is the Floki Wildlife Park. Floki is the name of my pet tortoise. He is my pride and joy. I love him so much. So that is kind of where this is coming from. The name is inspired by him, and our first animal is going to be a little tortoise to match as well. So yeah, I just thought I'd fill you in on what the name is. Now, back to the build. Hello, I hope you enjoyed that little time lapse. I'm going to start talking again now because we are about to build a plant box or a raised planter. There's going to be full of plants that are local to the area, that grow in this area naturally. So we're going to be selecting the biome of temperate and the continent Europe, because that is exactly where our zoo is set. We're going to use some modern wood wall pieces to build the outline for this raised planter. Originally I did try out some of the plant boxes that we already have, but I don't know, they weren't quite big enough, they weren't quite grand enough. Now it's not going to be anything too fancy, but we do just make a basic rectangle from these wooden pieces, then use some mulch pieces that can be found in the plants tab under the flower box kind of thingy at the bottom. Yeah, we're going to fill this plant box with some mulch, and then we're going to select those filters so that we have only plants from the temperate biome in Europe, and we are going to just fill this plant box up. Going to copy and paste this across so that we have two, and if you want one of these modern planters for your own zoo, I'm going to be popping it in the console workshop, so it will be available there for you to download and use in your own zoos. After that, we're going to use a wooden, I can't remember exactly what it's called. I think of it as like a trellis that's in the sky, which is obviously wrong. It's kind of this canopy that covers the walk area, the walkway for our guests. We're going to be covering that area with a wooden frame, which plants could grow on. We might place some ivy or something a little bit later on, but for now I'm just going to leave it bare, just to add that little bit more character to the entrance area. And as we had the zoo running in the background in order to have all of our research from our vet and our mechanics completed, our tortoises, they had babies because we had managed to get a female at some point, and we've basically unlocked all of their enrichment items now, so their enclosure is nice and full with enrichment things for them to keep happy and keep playing with, which is awesome. Yeah, we're going to get back to continuing this entrance area. I might just shut up and let you watch it again because I've kind of explained everything ahead of time. So, yeah, enjoy. One of the last things that I do is make a nice tile kind of pattern inside on the floor. Now, this isn't something that I'd normally bother with, but as this is going to be an indoor area, I thought we'd make it look a little bit nicer than just the asphalt-like path that we had picked earlier. Because, yeah, we should bury it and make it look a lot nicer. So what I do is I use the classic plants panels or whatever, I'm not entirely sure what they're called. These panels with lovely patterns of plants on them, and we sink them into the ground but make sure they are just above the path, just poking out over the top of the ground surface, and this will mean that the paths still register underground, the guests are still able to use them, but it appears as though they are walking on top of our panels that we've put down. You can do this to create any type of flooring you want. You can use any building material and sink it into the ground, but make sure it's just above the surface and make sure there's a path underneath it. Then your guests will be able to walk over it, and that is exactly how you make your own custom paths. Around halfway through laying these down, I decided I wanted to change the colour, which was a little bit annoying. So I finished laying all of them down, then highlighted the white ones that we had placed down beforehand, and go back and change their colour all at once. It's not too difficult to do, but you know, it's a little frustrating that I did it at all. For placing these, we have the move snap option on, which is something I really don't use very often. I've been talking for way too long. I'm really starting to mess up all my words. But by having the move snap tool on, it enables us to get a nice even kind of grid in place when these kind of items don't naturally go onto the grid system. So yeah, little tip for you if you want to have a nice even distribution of things like this, maybe put your move snap tools on, as it will help just a little bit. And with that flooring in place and just a few little holes filled in, I think we're actually done and ready for some cinematics. Thank you so much for having watched this video, and I hope that you're excited for the Floki Wildlife Park to blow up and really kind of expand from this point onwards. Make sure that you drop some suggestions for animals you'd like to see in the zoo down below, because this zoo is not going to be restricted to one continent or one biome. We're going to have a real mix here. So make sure you leave your suggestions in the comments. Thank you for giving this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribing to the channel to see more, and until next time, I'll see you later.